Hey fellas, quick caveat before we get into today's episode. Brian and I recorded this interview with Dr. Myles Spar way back on March the 6th, which feels like an eternity ago, given how much change we have been through since then. And if you've been listening to the show regularly over the past few weeks, I've been doing daily podcasts that I've been recording the morning of their release or maybe the night before their release, just really hitting the tone and the sentiments of the day because things are changing so rapidly. And you've found that to be very useful. And also, this episode is going to be useful in a different way because we are speaking about this. This is basically the format that we followed for the first year, right? When life was, quote, normal. So it's an interview about optimal men's health with a medical doctor. And this really pulls back the lens of how you want to be viewing your health through the lens of fitness, diet, sleep, sexual wellness, and supplementation. This is going to be just as useful because a year from now, when we are entering our new normal, or maybe it's going to be sooner than that, maybe it's going to be later than that, who the hell knows? We have a much bigger life that we are planning on living after this pandemic passes. So this interview and this conversation is going to be super useful so you can start to make some of those decisions now. And I wanted to provide this caveat up front because as you listen to the rest of the episode, it will sound different than what you've been hearing the last few weeks. Let's get into it. Hey, this is Dominic, and this is your home for the cutting-edge conversations on optimizing your personal performance, lighting up your sex life, and living a purpose-driven life of your own design.
These are the topics that Dominic and I have both struggled with in our own lives and still don't always get right. This is Brian. Welcome to the Great Man Podcast.
Welcome to the Great Man Within Podcast. Every episode designed to help you to discover and live the great man within you. Every so often, we have a guest in the show that is just so directly aligned with many of the principles that Brian and I have here about living the great man within you. And Dr. Myles Spar is one of those guests. He came on to discuss his new book, Optimal Men's Health, which is a man's guide to optimizing longevity, stress, fitness, nutrition, and supplementation, and generally looking and feeling your best. So this is right up our alley, guys. And Dr. Myles Spar is a medical doctor. He specializes in integrative men's health, specifically men's health. And he's been featured as an expert on Dr. Oz, in Men's Journal, and on the TEDx stages. He must be eating his own cooking because he's in his early 50s and looks at least a decade younger. And he exudes vitality, which you will hear about in our spirited conversation. So in this episode, you'll learn about why having purpose has shown to add 5 years to your life expectancy, and why men specifically need a sense of purpose to take their overall health, not just their fitness, but their overall health seriously, why you need to get your hormone panels done and how to do so inexpensively. And you'll hear about how Brian and why he's been avoiding it and how he's committed to doing that after the conversation with Dr. Spar. Understanding how your testosterone levels affect your libido, your vitality, and why it may contribute to mood swings. Dr. Spar goes over some supplements that men can take specifically for better sleep, sex drive, and stress. And we have lots of how to keep your dick healthy talk. So a little bit about Dr. Myles Spar. He is a faculty member for the schools of medicine at UCLA, University of Arizona, and Duke. He is the chief medical officer for Vault Health, which is a men's health startup that received about $30 million in venture capital funding. And they provide at-home testing services. They'll send a nurse to your house to do a blood test. And they also provide coaching services for you if you need to get on hormone treatment or to integrate meditation into your life so that you can optimize your health. It's a really intriguing proposition that he'll go into deeper detail in this episode. And he also runs the Get It Up podcast, where he answers questions that every guy has around sex, fitness, brain power, and performance. And finally, he is the author of Optimal Men's Health, which you can buy on Amazon. I found it to be a really practical and all-encompassing guide to many of the conversation points that we're having today. So go check that out. I'm going to link all of that in the show notes. So please enjoy today's conversation with Dr. Myles Spar, Optimizing Men's Health. Brian, we've got a special in-person guest today.
Doctor in the house.
A doctor in the house. Dr. Spar, welcome to the recording studio.
Thank you. It's great to be here. It's a nice house to be in.
You just changed your kitchen to a recording studio.
That's right.
Are we referring to your kitchen as a recording studio
living
now?
room, man.
Yeah, this is like a dining room.
Yeah.
Cool. Got it.
So
Dr. Spar, you were on Dr. Oz yesterday promoting your new book, Optimal Men's Health, right?
Exactly. Well, I was trying to promote my new book, but because of this global pandemic,
haven't heard of
coronavirus. Yeah, I know. That seems to be overtaking any bit of health news as we're launching a company, Vault Health. It's kind of hard to get some space in there. But yes, I was on the Dr. Oz show talking about coronavirus and how to be strong and face your immune deficiencies and do something about it.
Yeah. What's your perspective on it?
On coronavirus?
Yeah.
I think it's looking like, as of today, which is March 6th, because I don't want to be wrong when we find out more information, it looks like it's something most of us are going to get. We are. But most of us are going to either be asymptomatic or have a cold. The concern is for people that get really sick, which are generally older people, people with chronic diseases, people who smoke a lot, people who have lung disease, diabetes. They're the ones that are at risk of really, really getting sick from it. And so we don't know what the mortality rate is at this point because we don't know how many people have it. So we know how many people are getting really sick, but we don't know what the denominator is. So it's kind of hard to know. But if as many people get exposed to it as we think, even though the vast majority won't be that sick, because so many people are going to get it, even if it's a small percentage that get really sick, it'll be a big number.
Wow.
So
wow. I didn't know any. I didn't know most or all.
Have you not been reading the news? What's going on here?
No, when it comes to these kinds of things, I only pull my head out of the sand when it's like a real problem.
when you're sneezing. Let me summarize this for you. Wash your hands.
Yes.
I do it.
Do you do it well?
No, you can't do the average 6-7 second thing that most people do. No, you got to sing happy birthday twice.
Okay.
While washing your hands.
You got to get in under the nails. Like you got to really do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You got to get in there.
That's why this conversation around optimal men's health is quite timely.
Yeah.
Because I can upgrade these areas where I've been burying my head in the sand.
Well, and the good news is if you're listening to this and you're like, holy shit, I've already heard all the coronavirus stuff. That's great because what we really care about, like the coronavirus is going to come and go, hopefully without a lot of detriment. What we really care about is testosterone, dick health, men's health.
Yeah.
And we're going to nail that today.
For men.
Yeah. No, I got to say, the coronavirus, I did do some prepping. I did buy some food. I bought a little generator.
There you go.
Now I have a list in my phone. I have a list of things that I haven't got yet. And my girlfriend saw it on my phone the other day. It says handgun, crossbow, and duct tape. And she was like, what is wrong with you? I said, I didn't get it.
It's not the purge.
It's not the purge,
No.
yes.
Right.
So maybe a little over prepping, but today testosterone.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
You cannot shoot coronavirus with a crossbow.
Can't do it. Can't do it.
But it would be cool to try.
It'd be really cool. You have to be amazing.
I've seen The Walking Dead 3 times, so I was like, oh, crossbow, obviously, it goes on the list. Yes.
So you've been on Dr. Oz's show before. You had a pretty high profile client.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah. So a few years ago, I was on Dr. Oz. Well, actually, Dr. Oz came to me in my office where I was seeing Charlie Sheen, who normally we don't talk about personal, private information, but he's disclosed he has HIV. And I was helping to try and get him on board with HIV treatment, which he had been saying he didn't need because he had dragon blood. And so he was impervious to any kind of lethal virus. So we were trying to kind of get him on track and get him some acupuncture and some other things to help him feel better quickly. And he kind of yesed us. He was in my office and he was saying he would do everything. But actually, we had to keep breaking the recording because he had to step out for a cigarette about every 3 minutes. Like,
wow.
I remember years ago seeing these chain smokers, which that term I just had to think of because we haven't used it in so long. Like rarely do you see that now. Years ago, we used to have that. He's literally a chain smoker. Like one goes out within 2 minutes and another goes on. So that tells you a lot right there. But finally, we get the shoot done and he's like, yeah, I'm going to go on board. I'm going to start antivirals and all this. And literally gets in his giant SUV, gets a driver to take him down to Mexico where he finds some doctor.
Like straight from your office, just straight to Mexico.
Straight from the office. After he's like, yes, Dr. Oz, and yes, Dr. Spar, I'm going to get on board. I hear you. I'm going to do the alternate stuff as well, but I also know these antivirals are powerful and I need those. And then literally gets in the car and, I don't know if he was high or what, but goes right down to Mexico, finds this doctor who says, I can cure you with like one treatment. And then he gives him that treatment. And then he says, to prove I just cured you, I'm going to inject your blood into me. And he grabs Charlie's needle that was in the arm of Charlie, who has HIV and has a big, big viral load because he hadn't been treated, and jams it into his own arm. And
that's insane.
I don't know. And it was funny. Yeah, it was really funny because then Dom was like, wait, what happened to the doctor? And
Right.
no one's asked me that before. So I don't know.
We're going to have to do some research and find out what the aftermath was for this.
I have to give the doctor some credit. At least he's buying.
He doesn't deserve any
he gets credit because he's buying his own shit. He's like, you know what? I trust this so much.
Yeah.
So much. I'm going to inject myself with
a plunge, a syringe
with blood.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is actually quite thematic around how men sometimes treat our own health.
Yes.
Right. You were kind of going into that off.
Yeah, that's a lot of why I got into this field, because I was doing integrative medicine, which is all about preventive and proactive care. And I found the only people listening were women. And then I started looking at my colleagues and finding 70% of practitioners that do integrative medicine, functional medicine, preventive medicine, 70% of their patients are women. And I was like, what's going on? And I realized that approach of be proactive and be preventive and talk about wellness, men don't really respond to. That's not really compelling to not eat a hot dog in the name of maybe preventing a heart attack years from now. Men are about how can I perform better?
Yep.
What matters to me in terms of performance? What are my goals? Is it a sexual thing? Is it a physical thing? Is it a cognitive thing? And what do I do health-wise to make sure I can achieve those goals?
Yep.
Health isn't a goal in and of itself. Guys aren't, for the most part, going to weigh their food and track everything they're doing unless you have a chronic illness. And that's different. You have a chronic illness, yes, health is your primary goal. But if your real goal is to just perform better in some way, then health is the strongest tool you have. Yet we weren't reaching guys as integrative medicine providers or as any doctor, really, because guys won't go to the doctor. And, they're right not going to the doctor, because usually when they do, if they're already doing a lot to stay healthy, yet they're just not feeling on their game. So they go to their regular doctor and they're like, I'm just not feeling on my game sexually. My erections aren't what they used to be, or my libido is not what it used to be, or I'm just not as sharp mentally, or my body, I'm losing muscle mass. Most doctors, unfortunately, would do a generic blood panel and say, oh, you're all good. Nothing's broke. You're all good.
Yeah.
And the guy walks out feeling like, I just wasted half a day sitting in an office and was told basically that there's nothing wrong with me when I know I'm not on my game. So that's really why I do what I do and why I wrote this book, Optimal Men's Health, to say, no, there is a lot. You just need to go to a specialist in men's health.
That gives me a lot of peace, because I agree. I've been in that seat where I come in for my annual physical because that's the only thing that's worth it. I'm only screening for things that might kill me.
Right.
But if I want to optimize, which I do have interest in, I haven't really known where to go.
Right.
And my primary care doctor is certainly not that person.
Yeah, and it's not their fault. I'm a board-certified internist. I'm a primary care doc, at my base level, and they're really busy. They're seeing 28, 30 patients a day. They want to make sure you're not going to die. When you come in with a symptom, what the doctor's thinking is two things. What is the most likely thing going on, and what's going to kill this person that I don't want to miss? They're not really able to really spend the time thinking, well, how can I make sure he's optimal? They're just looking at normal. And normal isn't optimal. And even the normal range on labs isn't even optimal. They'll say your blood sugar is fine at 95. That sucks. That's high blood sugar. But they're like, I got 5 people waiting. I can't sit here and talk to this guy about how, 95 is normal, but not optimal. Let's talk about your diet. Mm-hmm. So anyway, so it's not their fault is the bottom line. But if you really want to take it to that next level, you need to see someone who is able to really go a little deeper.
Yeah. And the other way that story could end about that 11-minute primary care physician for your annual physical where everything looks good is maybe they find something that's off and then they prescribe a pill, and now you're on that pill for whatever reason for the rest of your life, right? Whether it's Prozac or it's Viagra or something. In those moments, like, decisions get made that could actually affect you for a lifetime, that have serious side effects in some cases. And so what we're talking about here is, how do we get more intentional about that?
Right.
And you hit this, which is, most men either care about performance or when something's undeniably broken.
Right.
Those are the two times that we pay attention. But we live most of the rest of our lives in the space in between. And so, like, how do we increase the quality of those interactions so that, like, we don't have to wait until the burning platform where something's like really broken for us to actually take command of our health?
So how do we do that? I am very guilty. I'm raising my right hand here. Very guilty of being the guy that doesn't go to the doctor. And most people that listen to this podcast know that it took me about 3 months from the time I had very, very obvious testicular cancer symptoms to go in and see a doctor. And then I only went in because it was at the insistence of a friend who was a urologist. So it took me that long. And I was diagnosed with both testicular cancer and chlamydia on the same day because I also had never been tested for STDs.
Oh, yeah. Thankfully for that friend.
Thankfully.
You in, yeah.
And so that was my big wake-up call. Like Dominic called it a burning platform to, I need to pay attention to what's going on in my body. And I think, especially I was 30 years old then, like for younger guys, like, it'll go away. It's not that big of a deal. So can you talk a little bit about the denial that we're in, or what is it that prevents us from going to get even performance-based medicine help?
Yeah, I think, it's this toxic idea of what manhood means. I think we've grown up with this idea of I call it the John Wayne, and a lot of people do, it's not just me, idea of what it means to be a man. And it means, in part, showing your power and never showing your weakness and being stoic and not seeking help. Men see going to the doctor as a failure, that they have failed at something. You getting testicular cancer wasn't a failure. There's nothing you could have done to cause that. There's nothing you could have done to prevent that. And yet still there's something inside of you that's like, why do I have something that's wrong? And I don't want to share it with anybody, even a doctor who could help me, because that implies vulnerability. And it's interesting, Brene Brown, who's this amazing psychologist from Texas. I think she's at Rice University in Houston, and she's a PhD. She did this YouTube talk that went viral, right? And she talks about vulnerability and shame. And she focuses on women, and she talks about how for women, the antidote for shame or anything you're concerned or feeling bad about is to share it and share your vulnerability about it. And that really takes the air out of that shame and makes you able to really discuss it and feel better. So she's doing she tells this story. She was doing a book signing, and there's a woman there with her older daughter and her husband, and they go up for the book signing, get her to sign the books. And then the husband is like, I want to hang around. And they said, no, we're done. You just came to be with us, because she's like a lady person. And he said, no, I want to ask Dr. Brown something. And they're like, okay. So he's up in line. He gets up to the front and he says to Dr. Brown, why do you only write about women with this whole vulnerability and shame thing? And she says, well, that's, what I study. That's what I focus on. And he says, well, isn't that convenient? And she's used to these adoring fans, not to anyone kind of challenging her. And she's like, well, what do you mean by that? He says, well, your whole hypothesis and what you write about how sharing what you're shameful about is what is the cure for vulnerability doesn't work with men. When I am with my wife and daughter here who read your books and follow you and listen to you, they say to me, Daddy, you clearly have some stuff that's on your mind. Share it. Talk to us about it, because we know from Dr. Brown that will help you. He said, when I share anything that I'm concerned about or is a sense of feeling of weakness for me, the only way I can describe the look on their face is one of disgust.
Wow.
Right. Grossness.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
He said they'd rather
Not a man.
Not a man.
Yeah.
He said they'd rather see me die on my white horse than fall off of it.
Ooh.
And it's kind of chilling. And unfortunately, it's true. We're stuck in this kind of conundrum where we're starting to be told, you should go seek help. You should get help and check what's going on and share your weaknesses so that you can overcome them. And yet when we do that, we feel like we've lost our manhood.
So it's so true. And to make this personal, I try to figure out what that line is. Like a phrase that Dominic and I use often is, for the heterosexual folks in the room, our women are not our therapists.
Right.
And that can add a lot of burden to the relationship and vulnerability.
Right.
And tell me what's going on in your mind. And sometimes I struggle with where that line is. Like, when do I stay on the white horse and when do I get off the damn thing?
Exactly. So I think it's really important to acknowledge that and realize, no, it's not a sign of weakness to seek help. That's this old idea of manhood that isn't healthy for us. We know toxic masculinity is really bad for women, obviously, because it's men being really hurtful and dangerous toward women, but it's also hurtful for men because a million reasons, but especially that we're not getting the care we need. So you need to find someone you can talk to. It could be a girlfriend like you're talking about, but it could also be a physician or a nurse practitioner or somebody who knows about men's health and you feel is a safe place. We're trying to build that with Vault Health, with a national healthcare practice for men. But if there are other people in your area that are a little more expert in working with men on performing better, that's a place to go. Or feel free to talk to friends, that are guy friends. It doesn't have to be, we talk about how guys share more shoulder to shoulder than face to face. It doesn't mean like you have to do it like maybe a woman would over, coffee, sitting across from each other at a table. It could be while you're watching a game, while you're attending some event, while you're playing a tennis match, just kind of sharing a little something that might be on your mind, especially if it's health-wise, might actually save your life, might help you feel like, oh, this guy's experiencing that too, and actually shows your strength and your confidence that you're still a man, even though you're able to ask for help as opposed to sharing your weakness.
Yeah.
I love this idea of having multiple people and multiple roles in our lives where we can take the stuff that's in our head and get it out in a really healthy way, get really great information so that we can live a bigger, better lives, and sometimes even stay on that white horse.
Right.
Dominic and I are part of a men's group that meets every Monday night. And part of the value of that is we get all the stuff out so that when we come back into our lives and into our existence with our friends and our colleagues and the women in our lives, we can come in a more purified, in a more refined sort of way instead of just exploding.
Exactly.
And this feels really similar. Like from a doctoral standpoint, I could talk to my girlfriend and be like, well, I'm not feeling good, this or that. Or I could get the answers.
Right.
And we've had some themes over the last 2 years of physical pain in our groups,
Yes.
right? Like, I mean, you've had back pain. There was another man in our group who had twitches in his eyes and like chronic pain in his body. And to be able to bring that into community and to be met. I know that in your work, you cite and reference the blue zones, right? The book about the 5 different areas in the world where people live to the age of 100 much longer than others, like Okinawa and other spots. And one of the biggest reasons that people live that long is because there's community, there's tribe, and there's also purpose.
Right.
Which I think would be a great place for us to kind of pull back the lens a little bit here. Is you speak a lot about purpose in optimal men's health in your new book and also on your TEDx talk, which is around, let's stop focusing on what's the matter with you. And let's talk about like, what is your purpose? Like, what are you here to do? And then how does health support that? And I know that for me, when I got really serious about my health, because like, if you look at pictures of me from 10 years ago, I think physically speaking, I was in pretty good shape, but my face was swollen. Like if you were to look at pictures of my face now versus then, my face was swollen then. I was inflamed because I really didn't know anything about diet. I had 12 boxes of cereal. That was my breakfast in the morning. And I would crash later in the morning, crash in the afternoon. I just kind of went through life like that.
Right.
When I started to find my purpose, which is I want to live till I'm 121 years old. I've got this grand vision of helping 10 million men who are not yet on the path of inner work to get on that path, to light up in their lives. And I want to be sexually vibrant. I don't want to be pissing into a bedpan and having someone clean it out for me. I don't want to be bedridden. I want to be like on my feet for the rest of my life. Now that I know what I'm standing for, then like I'm getting serious about my health, my diet, supplements, sleep now.
Yeah, it's not subtle and it's not kind of this airy-fairy idea of what is my grand purpose. It's very practical. Like you said, you want to live to 120, but why? Because you want to reach 10 million men. And you got to take it to that level or even a couple levels lower. You know, maybe your purpose is I don't want to die. Why don't you want to die? What difference would it make if you died? Well, I have my kids. Okay, so tell me, what do you want to be there for your kids? You know, I want to see them grow up or I want to see grandkids. Like getting very, very granular. And it's actually scientifically proven. There's studies like from the blue zones that you mentioned, Dominic. Their studies show that having a clear sense of why you get up in the morning, they call it ikigai because one of the blue zones is Japanese, and that's a Japanese term for what's your purpose or what's your reason for getting up in the morning. Just clearly identifying that adds 5 years to life expectancy. And that has been replicated in other studies showing that having a sense of purpose actually triggers you to stop smoking, to start exercising, having this clear reason to do it. Ben Hardy, who's a really popular blogger on Medium, writes about like in the morning, start your day with writing, what is it that you're going to do that day that is in service of some bigger dream? Yeah, there's a shit you got to get done that day. And you got to list that out. And I got to call this person or pay that bill or whatever, deal with this issue. But I'm going to make sure I do a couple things that are also in service of this bigger purpose. So yeah, my TEDx talk, and I talked to a lot of guys about not what's the matter with you, but what matters to you. Yep. What are your goals? Because that's so much more alluring to then make a behavior change than just, I want to get rid of some symptom. So it's like, are your goals to be sharper mentally? And why? You know, well, I want to get a promotion at work. Why do you want to get a promotion at work? Well, I need to make more money. What do you want more money? I want freedom. Great. So think about what that freedom would buy you. Would it buy you more time with your family, more travel, more ability to buy things you want? What is it? And that's what you need to think about every day of what am I going to do today to help me be sharper mentally so I can get that promotion, so I can make more money, so I can get that freedom. So I think it's really very practical. It's not this, oh, what's my purpose? I don't even often use the word purpose because that sounds a little too vague. It's what are your goals? What's the number one thing? And a lot of what we do, for example, at Vault, every guy gets a coach, and the coach is a performance coach that works with our patients, but they're only allowed to work on one thing at a time.
Okay.
Because these are guys. You can't work on like, change your diet, start meditating, take these supplements, start exercising. It's just overwhelming.
Can you give a little background on Vault?
Yeah.
Like what is it and then how does it work? Because I think that this is a really important point I'd like to get back to.
Sure.
Coach.
So I was doing my own thing, exactly what we're talking about, doing optimal men's health work in California. And I had, I work with NBA athletes, I work with celebrities, I work with regular patients, I work with tons of people. And my goal is very much the same as yours, Dominic. I want to get my whole mission is to engage and equip men to take charge of their own health, because men don't, and they let the women in their lives take charge of their health for better or for worse. And they're just not engaged at all, right? So I was doing that on my own. And then this company that's VC funded has this amazing CEO that came from Amazon, a COO came from Blue Apron. They said, we're trying to do the same thing, only we have a lot of funding and you don't have to be the CEO and the CMO and the marketing person and the lawyer. You can just focus on being the chief medical officer. Tell us what kind of products we should be providing. What are the protocols? Help us build a national practice for specialized healthcare for men that goes to men in their home or office, and it's all virtual after that. So we do exams in the home, we do blood work, and then we do everything else from telemedicine, and we focus on performance. So they got me to move to New York. So that's why I'm able to be here in your home studio. We're building this network all around the country. It's in about 4 or 5 states now, and it will be national by the end of the year.
And if we were to go to vault.com, which we
Vault
have,
Health.
But, Vault Health?
Yes.
So it's vaulthealth.com.
Vaulthealth.com.
So if someone goes there, what are they going to see first? And
yeah, they're going to see questions about what do they want to work on. Yeah. So what are their main issues? Mostly we really focus on performance sexually, physically, and cognitively. So is it a sexual issue, whether it's libido, erectile function? What is it? Is it a physical issue? I want more energy, or I want more muscle, or I want to lose some belly fat? Or is it being more sharp in terms of brain function? And then you let us know what your issues are. And then you set up an appointment for someone to come to your home or office, do an intake, do some blood work, check your hormones, check your cardiovascular disease risk, see what you need to be doing to perform better in the way you care about. And then we give you a plan. It could be hormones, it could be peptides, it could be supplements, it could be working with the coach, it could be a change of diet, but we give you a plan. You pay monthly. We're out of network. We're not covered by insurance, but you can use your HSA and all that. And then you get every month delivered to you this kit of whatever is personalized to you to help you perform better in that way. And we can tweak it every month if need be. You have 24/7 access to our practitioners, and you have a coach to work with.
Awesome.
Part of what I love about this is I feel like it can be overwhelming. All the new information that's out there, should I be looking at free testosterone, or bioavailable testosterone, or total testosterone, and what about estrogen, and how do I get estrogen out of my body? And it gets overwhelming.
Right.
And what I like about this is that you've got a coach, you've got diagnostics, and you've got a plan.
Right.
To me, there's some simplicity.
Medical mostly, and you have experts in men's health, and that's what we're saying. Unfortunately, a lot of GPs, primary care docs, just don't have this expertise, and they don't know how to really help you when you just want to be better, not just not dying. Right. And so we have these experts.
the goal is not just not dying.
Yeah, it's a little more than just not dying. So that's the key, is you need expertise in men's health.
What you're describing sounds expensive. Is it?
What I was doing in California was more expensive because that was, very tailored. This is much more scalable in VC kind of terms. So no, it starts at $200 a month. It's not crazy expensive. Yeah. Very accessible. And we start with hormones because that's an important place to start, because all those respects, if you're not doing well cognitively, physically, or sexually, if your hormones are out of whack, then almost nothing else you do is going to overcome that. Yeah. So you got to work on that. And maybe you don't want testosterone supplementation. Maybe we do it with diet or supplements or whatnot. Or maybe we do it with testosterone. Or maybe we do it like you had Dr. Killen on in the past with other things that help you make more of your own testosterone. But hormones are kind of one thing we start with guys, because that really underlies not only the symptoms, but even risk for other problems and even early death if your hormones are off.
Yeah, let's talk about that, right? I mean, we talked a little bit about this in the Dr. Amy Killen episode, How to Keep Your Dick Healthy. I was shocked that it took me until the age of 38 for me to start asking my doctors about hormone panels. I know that they did some of it with my annual physical, but no one ever went over the numbers with me. No one ever talked to me about the importance of my hormones being in balance. No one ever talked about as external estrogen sources.
Yes.
Like we learned about with Dr. Anthony J when we had him on the show, and he wrote a book on the estrogeneration, how estrogenics are keeping you fat, sick, and infertile. And so it was only in the last 3 years have I started to understand the role of testosterone and estradiol and free testosterone and its functions in my life. So you already kind of hit at a high level the importance of that. Let's say for someone who's listening right now, like what would their next step be if they've never, like you, Brian, like actually you're probably a good example. You have still
I'm right here.
Gone. Okay. So talk to Brian, who has still not gone in and gotten a panel done. Like, how can you shake him like a baby?
Well, let me give you my headspace on this is I went through testicular cancer 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago. So I lost a nut. I went through chemotherapy. And I'm terrified of what the results might be. Now, I know I'm kind of playing out the same pattern I had last time. Right.
So, that's what we were just talking about.
But I guess one of my issues is what I'm afraid of mostly is that if my hormone levels are low, and I've done some things to tweak them without actually testing them.
Okay.
I'm afraid that I'm going to have to hop onto this testosterone train for the rest of my life. That's what scares me.
Yeah, well, good. Thanks for sharing that. So that makes a lot of sense. However, you can't deal with something that you're not measuring. And for you especially, it could be kind of fun to have your numbers and then do the things you're doing and see how it impacts your testosterone level.
More fun, actually. I would enjoy that.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make sense to tweak things and have in a black box. You don't know. Is it having an impact? I mean, yeah, you can go by your symptoms, but this is something you can really measure. So you can look at it as more like, I'm going to make an Excel spreadsheet, track my levels, and then try this supplement, try meditating, try this diet, try avoiding all these estrogenic exposures, all of that.
So just do what Dominic did. Damn it, Dominic.
Yeah, you got to measure. But the bottom line is, if you're having any symptom, and symptoms of low T are not just sexual. Obviously, low libido and erections not being as strong is one symptom, but other symptoms are things like just feeling a little moody, feeling a little depressed, feeling a little brain foggy, low energy in general. Those are all signs that maybe it could be testosterone. And what drives me crazy is a lot of times docs, regular primary care docs will say, oh yeah, your T, drops with age and that's normal. It's like saying, well, you get cataracts with age. Yeah, deal with it. That's normal. No, we friggin' fix the cataract, right? So it's not normal to have low T and have symptoms. You should get that symptom addressed by checking your T. Plus, if your T is truly low, it actually increases your risk for heart disease, for diabetes, for metabolic syndrome. It increases risk for early death. So it's not something that is just about the symptoms.
Well, now I'm scared the other way. I need to go get tested.
You need to get tested.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it's fine. I mean, I don't know if you're having any of the symptoms that I...
All of them. All of them to a certain extent, yes.
Well, then, yes, you need to get tested because there is stuff you could do. And maybe it's testosterone. In terms of the lifelong treatment, a couple things about that. Number one, you're not committed to anything. If it's helping you feel better, you're going to keep taking it. But it doesn't mean that you have to keep taking it forever. If you feel like, the risk-benefit balance isn't really enough for me, and I just hate doing this testosterone therapy for whatever reason, you could stop it. You'll go back to feeling not as good.
So let me ask you this. What's a normal range for testosterone?
Sure. So I hate to say what a normal range is because it's variable. And you got to measure not just the total, but what's called the free testosterone, because most testosterone is bound up to proteins, bound up to albumin and to something called sex hormone binding globulin. And so most of that's bound up isn't really able to bind to receptors and work. So I hate it when guys just get a total T. That doesn't tell you anything. And unfortunately, the guidelines only use total T. So they'll say if you're under 300, some will say 350, you're low. But again, that's very arbitrary. And that doesn't take into account that if you have high amounts of these proteins binding up your testosterone, then even if you're at 500, you could have really low free levels. And then you'll have all the symptoms of low T and all the impact of low T. So you need to get your total T. If it's under 350 or 300, for sure you're low. But if it's over that, you still could be functionally low.
So let's say I'm at, 300. Total T. And I say, Dr. Spar, hey, I'm at 300. I'm having some symptoms. Let's try the testosterone stuff.
Right.
And then for, let's say, 6 months, I do it. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm kind of done with this, whether it's financially or I'm just whatever. If I go back to normal Brian, am I going to go back to baseline at 300 or am I going to go to 100 because I've been on testosterone?
No, good, very good question. Yeah, for the first few weeks, if you just stop cold turkey, you would go really low. So as long as you taper off, you'll just go back to normal Brian. You won't get any lower. You will not have done yourself any harm.
Okay. But, this is good. This is helpful.
Yeah. But, I want you to rethink the having to take testosterone. Again, it's that male kind of, I don't need any help. But if you had diabetes and I said, you really need insulin, which is another hormone, because otherwise your uncontrolled blood sugar is going to cause early death and blindness and an amputation and heart disease, you're going to be like, all right, I need the insulin. It's not that different. If you have low testosterone, especially you probably have normal with one testicle. Most guys with one testicle still have normal, but it could be one reason why it's lower. Then if it's affecting your quality of life, there's no harm in treating it. It can be an injection, we use subcutaneous tiny needle injections that are just like insulin needles, so you hardly feel it. But you can also there's a pill called clomiphene for someone your age that can work to help build your own testosterone. There's actually topical creams. We don't use them a ton because they can transfer onto other people, but they work effectively. So there are other things you can do other than needles to do it. But if it's helping you, I would say at least give it a try and then make that informed decision of, you know, I don't like using it. I'll go back to pre-T Brian.
Right.
Or, you know what, I feel a lot better. My girlfriend says I'm better. So I'm going to stay on it.
This is good.
Yeah.
Okay.
You got any other questions, man?
That's it.
You sure?
Well, I want to add
Just get tested.
Yes, get tested.
Yeah.
And also know there are other things like you talked about besides just testosterone that help with the symptoms and even can help your testosterone levels. Because the other issue is estrogen, as you mentioned.
Yep.
So it's really important to get your estradiol checked. If your T is normal and your estradiol is too high, you're going to feel like your T is low, and you got to address that. So you have to get that checked as well.
And when you say your estradiol is high, you
Yeah.
feel like your T is low.
Yeah.
What is that feeling?
That feeling is feeling like you're low libido, you're having a hard time building muscle mass, you have a hard time losing belly fat. It's basically interfering with the action of testosterone.
Yeah, got it.
And there are ways to treat that. There's ways with medication, it's a pill, or there are ways to do it environmentally, trying to be really conscious of avoiding exposure to plastics and meats that have been given hormones and other exposures like your guest talked about.
Yeah, let's hit a little bit of that because you write about this in your book. And I remember there was a patient of yours who was bringing his meals to the office in like a plastic Tupperware and then heating it up in the microwave, which has like phthalates.
Yes, exactly.
Which are external estrogen sources that get into your food, and that can increase your estradiol. So maybe like a couple examples of things like that are commonplace in people's households. And then you also write about some supplements that people could take that you could buy over the counter.
Yeah.
That could also, like arginine and others that could help to
Sure. That help with some. There's not a lot of supplements that boost testosterone per se, but there are supplements that can help with the symptoms of low T. There's one supplement called Tongkat Ali that's a little bit studied to help maybe boost testosterone, but most of them do help the symptoms of low T. But in terms of the estrogen, we do see that a lot. A lot of guys, we all convert testosterone to estrogen. And you might think estrogen is not an issue for a guy. It's a women's hormones, but we need a little bit of estrogen for our bone health, for our heart health. But you want a little bit. You want your level to be like between, let's say, 20 and 40. If it's over 40, that's an issue.
I want to take a look at my
Take a look at your numbers here, Dominic.
My most recent test, I was at 27.
Woo! Yes.
Look at you.
You're
Right
in
in
it.
range. Look at you.
And it's not even normal. That's optimal. That's great. You're good. You're good.
Like optimal men's health.
There you go.
God, he's so
Yeah.
good.
We were talking about maybe going through Dominic's hormones, but they're so friggin' kind of dialed in. So I don't know that we're going to learn a lot from
The
them.
good news for me is that my testosterone might be off, so I have some sort of upside. Dominic,
go.
this is as good as it gets.
Yes.
You're already optimal.
Working on it, man.
But there's cortisol and some other stuff we can take. But anyway, so with estradiol, the big things are, I would say, avoiding plastics, especially avoiding heated plastics, because plastics do have phthalates, which are actually hormonally active in terms of estrogen. And also, we don't think about like the big water coolers in the office that are being dragged around on trucks in the heat all day long.
Oh.
And those plastic containers leach into the water. So use your own water bottle, get a water filter, use like a metal or glass water bottle. That's way better than drinking out of that big water cooler. And that's number one. The other thing that sometimes we don't think about is soy protein isolate. Like whole soy is okay. It's okay for guys to have edamame and even soy milk and tofu, but that soy protein isolate that you see in power bars and in protein shakes and that kind of thing actually is like concentrated soy and it's processed, and that is estrogenic.
Huh. So soy milk is okay.
Soy milk is okay. Like whole soy products kind of have this agonist antagonist. They're a little healthier, but it's when you process it. Anything processed is bad, first of all.
Right.
But when you process it, so if you see something called isolate, there's some chemistry going on there.
Interesting. So like the protein bars, like which we grab when we're on the go, anything that's a soy protein isolate,
Not
get away
great
from
for
it.
guys. That would be my recommendation. If you have these issues.
This is really good information. I know in high school and college, I worked at GNC for a while. I was really into health and fitness. And so I had figured out the best supplements, the best diets, the best workout plans. And then after I graduated college, I stopped researching. I stopped reading the magazines. Because I started living life.
Right. You get busy.
And then I realized 10 years later that I was operating all on really old information. And it wasn't until I started listening to podcasts and I heard Dave Asprey talking about these new things like healthy fats and all this other stuff. So the stuff that you're giving us right now it's a great opportunity for us to upgrade our information.
Definitely.
and stop. Yeah.
Exactly. And guys like Dave Asprey, I totally trust, and you can listen to him. I mean, the other thing, and he'll say this too, is non-organic meat. I'm not vegan. I try and eat a lot more plants. I'm mostly plant-based, but I definitely eat meat. But you want to really keep it grass-fed, organic if it's chicken, wild if it's fish, because if they're not, they're fed crap and they're given hormones, especially cows if you're eating beef. So you are getting in non-organic milk and in non-organic, not wild beef, you are getting hormones. You're getting female hormones because these are female cows.
Yeah. Let's talk about that too, because over the past few years, I've really changed my diet to move off of most of the carbs. Like I still have them, right? Like I don't really not do anything, right? But like I used to be cereal every morning. Now I intermittent fast.
Great.
And then my first meal of the day is something like eggs, kale, spinach, and maybe bacon or something. So now I'm eating more meat, and the meat is grass-fed. It's organic. For the first time in my life, I've kind of tipped over in that cholesterol, into like they say the moderate, like let's watch it. But I've also been hearing from different places that cholesterol is actually, there's a cholesterol myth.
Yes.
As long as your triglycerides are healthy, like are low, which is basically fat, right?
Right. Well, that's how your sugar gets stored in that form of fat. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And my triglycerides are really low. So when doctors have looked at it, they're like, you're fine. Could we talk a little bit about that?
Sure. That's a little controversial. I mean, I think it's somewhere in between. I think there's, especially if you have a bad family history of heart disease and if you have, or stroke at an early age, if you have diabetes, if you have other risk factors for heart disease, cholesterol is more of an issue. But if you're otherwise a healthy guy, I think cholesterol is way overblown.
Okay.
And you want to look at not just total cholesterol, you need to look at these other markers like the ratio of cholesterol to what's called HDL, your high density lipoproteins, because HDL is protective. So even if your cholesterol is going up, if your HDL is also going up, which often it does on those kind of diets, then you're okay. So it's that ratio. You want it to be under 4.5 or so, you're good. But the most important thing is there are other markers that really need to be checked.
Okay.
Because if you're not looking at inflammation, which is measured by CRP or something called Lp(a), then you're not knowing your whole picture. So Bob Harper. So he was this really fit guy. He's the trainer on The Biggest Loser, right? He had his physical for the show for CBS or whatever network it is to check, and he checked his cholesterol and everything was fine. He had a heart attack like 2 years ago. It was all over the news and everything. Turned out when they went back, got the blood he had done before and reanalyzed it looking at these other markers, his Lp(a), lipoprotein (a), was sky high. Totally separate from cholesterol, a very strong risk factor for heart disease. And actually, I did a podcast with the New York Times writer who wrote the article about why aren't we checking this on everybody? Why doesn't insurance cover this test? Which it doesn't, which is crazy. But that's the kind of thing you want to ask your doctor to check on you. It's not crazy expensive. It's worth doing because if that's high, then yes, you need to worry about your cholesterol because then I have this risk factor. Everything else needs to be really, really dialed in. But if your CRP is low because your inflammation's low, your Lp(a) is fine, these other markers, you don't have diabetes, then yes, you're absolutely right, Dominic. Don't stress out about the cholesterol.
Keep eating your bacon, buddy. You are good.
But you write about this in Optimal Men's Health and lipoprotein, so Lp(a),
right.
and also CRP, which is
C-reactive protein.
C-reactive protein are two things I've never heard of before.
Are those something that Vault Health includes on the panel, or is it something we go directly to you for? How do we get tested for
right.
this thing?
Vault Health, we have our basic panel, which just looks at hormones, or we have a more comprehensive panel that we can check to look at all of those things, those and more, because there are other factors as well that really tell you what's your individual risk for having problems. And the reason that's important, especially in terms of even sexual health, and I think Dr. Killen talked about this, erections are like a canary in a coal mine. And so your erection can be your best friend, as we already think of it as our best friend. But if you're having some problems there, that could be an early sign. No matter how big your dick is, your penile artery is going to be one of the smallest arteries in your body.
My artery is so big.
Speak for yourself, Dr. Spar.
Exactly. I already heard one of you is a grower, one's a shower. Remember that episode. But anyway, so your penile artery is going to be one of the first indicators if there's any blockage in your arterial flow in your whole body. It's going to show up there first. So that's when, if somebody has that issue, that's when we tell them, if you're coming to Vault Health with this erection issue, we could just focus on hormones, but let's really look at your cardiovascular disease risk because that could be kind of a flag that we need to look at that.
Nice.
Are you a shower? Because I'm a grower.
I'm a grower.
You're a grower. Oh, we're both growers.
Yeah, I think
okay.
so.
Yeah, I'm both. So
you're both. Damn it.
Is there anything else?
Your arteries are probably great too.
Awesome. Yeah, I have the giant penile artery. Like it's crazy.
Get complimented on that all the time.
Yeah.
Actually, you were talking before we move off any dick. There's probably plenty of dick stuff we could still talk about. that you just recently launched a podcast.
Yes.
And
yes.
It's called
Get It Up.
Oh, this makes so much
podcast.
sense.
It's just straight talk for guys. Again, you need a specialist. So it's me. I'm an internist, but a men's health specialist. My other partner, who's the chief clinical officer of Vault Health, is Alex Pastuszek. He's a urologist. So he's a specialist in men's health from a little bit different perspective. So we answer, each episode is a guy calling in with a question. We answer very straight talking questions, unembellished, just say it like it is. One caller was asking about cum volume and what's a normal amount? Is it hotter to have more? Is it a problem if I have less? What about dick size? How, like you guys talked about, how do you measure dicks? Like anything, what do girls
I think
want?
I want, if I was posed the question, I think I want more cum. Wait. Volume.
Oh,
volume wise.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. That's on an episode. We just posted a whole episode about it.
We're going to check this out.
Well, it's funny because then we brought a woman on and we said, some guys are concerned that it's hotter to have more cum. And basically she said, it's just a hot mess.
Right.
Literally.
You can't win. What was she? Did she want
She's
a dry cum?
Enough that I know it
powder
happened.
Just
No, a little bit. Well, this is what's funny. Okay, so I came from LA, right? My office was in West Hollywood, and the porn industry is kind of focused on the San Fernando Valley, which is right across the hill. So I had some porn, they're never porn actors or porn stars. I don't know why. They're always stars, right? And I would help treat them. But one thing that I realized from them is part of the reason we have this warped perspective of how much cum you should have is from watching porn.
Sure.
And guess what? There's something called post-production, which you guys do with the podcast. You do some editing afterwards. Well, they literally edit in more fake cum. So they will, yes. So the amount of cum and like the multiple pulsations of shots of load spewing out is actually not real.
That's new. I've never heard that before. That's amazing.
Fake cum.
Fake cum.
It's all fake.
It's not all. Like the first spurt is probably real. And then you'll notice like they'll either show the exact same shot over and again, or you'll just see it coming out. And it's really a syringe that someone's squirting out from that's held right next to the guy's dick. So it actually can look, if they angle the camera right.
We do some post-production. We don't do that.
You don't do that.
Post-production.
I feel so deceived right now.
You need to
our producer gets rid of my ums.
Yeah, right.
Not my cums.
Doesn't accentuate your cum.
Yeah.
This is blowing
So
my
it's like this. So
mind,
part of the issue is, and that's a whole discussion, is how porn has affected our perception of what sex should be. And I don't know if, oh my God, again, another topic. The Atlantic magazine, I think her name is Orenstein, who wrote about, yes, oh my God, like this story about how young men who are like starting at college age up in the early 20s are just completely under pressure to last longer, and that their female partners are going to post how long they last. And so anyway, there's all this stuff going on right now about sexual expectations based on everything from social media to porn. So keep your expectations in check. But when it comes to ejaculate, more is not better. The most important thing, it's not a sign of a health problem. It's not a red flag if you have less than you had before, or you have less than you want. If you have no ejaculate, once in a while that can actually happen. You can have something called retrograde ejaculation. You can even have a little blood in your ejaculate occasionally, and that's it's so scary, but it actually usually is a sign of maybe an infection, so it should get checked out, but it doesn't usually mean something like cancer. But typically, if your cum volume is a little changed here and there, it's not a big deal, and it's probably no less hot for your partner.
I don't know if this is medically accurate, but very anecdotally for me, my cum volume after losing my second nut stayed about the same. In the first orgasm, but in like a second or third orgasm, like let's call it minutes or hours later,
right?
It has less.
Like
it's almost like it takes longer to regenerate.
Well, see, I'm not sure how that would work, because really most of your volume is coming from your prostate, right? So most of your semen is actually made in your prostate. The only thing that's coming from your testicle is the sperm, which has a little bit of fluid with it.
Right,
Interesting.
So I don't know why. I don't know that I've never seen a study of uni-nut guys. Is that what you call mono-nut?
Volume of cum over a period of time, multiple orgasms. Let's do that. It's very specific.
We need to look. If not, we're going to do that study. That's awesome. Yes, we need an IRB approved study of mono-nut ejaculate volume.
Mono-nut sounds so much better than just one nut.
Yeah.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
Or uni-nut. Well, I think
uni-nut sounds funny.
Well, Uniball is way too close to the Penn brand. So it is the Penn brand.
All right. Well, once again, the porn industry deceives us. We had Lisa Ann, who is one of the most influential porn stars in the industry. She actually is a star. I guess like a top 10 downloads.
So she's legit.
She's legit, and she was talking about how these, I think they're called fish eye camera lenses, make like the dicks look
Yes.
25 to 50% bigger.
Yeah.
And they also hire porn talent that's like really skinny dudes. She calls them dicks on a stick. So they're like, their dicks just look bigger in proportion to their bodies. So like, there's all of these things that are happening. And like, I know that I've been susceptible to like just what I've made that mean, especially in the court, like the cum thing. Like we were talking about this before we started recording. I'm like, in my mind, a sense of my own masculinity was like volume and distance.
Yes.
And I've done dick kegels.
Oh, nice.
With the intention of making sure that I can continue to shoot a distance that
Dominic, be
my
honest.
partner cares nothing about.
Do you measure? Have you measured the distance?
With what? Like a tape measure?
Yes.
No, but
I mean,
like
you duct tape the floor. You see where it lands.
Headboard? Are we
It's like
talking
shot
headboard?
put.
Yeah, I've done that. I've like
Damn.
in the past, like not so much, but yeah, there have been times where in the past with like a partner, it would hit the head or
This sounds dangerous.
Wait, so tell us about these Dick Kegel exercises.
just like I think I read about this in Multi-Orgasmic Man with Montauk Chia, right? It was just like I contract my perineum.
Good.
And like the head, like this is what you do when you go to the bathroom and you're pissing and you just stop your piss.
Right.
It's basically that. It's like stopping the stream. And
I'm doing it right now. I'm not peeing. I'm doing the Kegel right now.
How does that make you feel, Dr. Spar?
Kind of weird.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's
So
fair.
like there was this period of time where like I did 300 a day. When my alarm would go off, 100 before I got out of bed, 100 at the end of the night, and then like 100 when I was in a boring conversation with somebody. and so there'd be like 300 a day. And
I'm doing it now.
So we're all doing it. So like I'm not joking. Within a period of 30 days, like there was results. Let's just say like my next sexual experience at the end of those 30 days, there was like distance.
Wow.
But for fucking what? Like because it made me feel like a man.
Right.
And, like my partner, there was nothing about that was necessarily pleasurable to her. It just was
a hot mess.
Yeah, a hot mess.
I actually don't do Kegels for distance. I do it for control. I do it so I can control the orgasm, the ejaculation, so that I can be in the moment longer.
Right.
Yeah.
So you don't like pop off
Right.
before you want.
Right.
That's the reason I do it.
Cool.
I haven't measured though, so maybe that's something I should check out.
Yeah.
It's a nice side effect. Yeah.
Just put like a little tape on the ground and just give it. Okay. How do we transition?
Let's get back on track here. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's reel this back. Anyway, so the Get It Up podcast.
Get It Up podcast. Yeah.
You got to listen because each episode is a caller asking some question that most guys would never dare to ask their doctor because they've been going to their doctor for too many years, or their partner goes to the same doctor and they don't want them to know, and they don't ask their friends. So it's really fun. And we've had women on talking about what do you really want from guys, which I know you've talked about before, which has been awesome for guys to hear. That it's kind of surprising. The funny thing is we had to come up with a production name for Get It Up podcast, so it's Morningwood Productions.
Oh, good morning. That makes all kinds of sense.
You
Yes.
can catch it on Apple and Spotify, wherever you like your podcasts. Yes.
I love it, man.
I love it. So the podcast is Get It Up,
Yes.
produced by
Morningwood
Productions. I love it.
None other.
And you showed me your logo. Your logo actually looks like a little.
Yes, it's a microphone that's kind of in the erect shape.
Yes.
Angle.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, we put a lot of
All
thought
on
into
brand.
it.
Very on brand.
On brand. I realized I didn't know this. Pretty much most good podcasts are explicit, and that doesn't hurt your search rankings, and they actually don't care. As long as you're not saying anything dangerous,
Right.
you can kind of say whatever you want on these things.
So
They're amazing. Right?
Yeah.
Until
Wild,
someone
Wild
comes
West out
along
here.
and regulates us.
Right.
But yeah, it has been the Wild West.
Yes.
Why don't we spend like the last few minutes talking a little bit about something that you wrote about in the book that I think is really helpful for many of our listeners, which is around supplements.
Mhm.
And there's an explosion of supplements that are on the market right now that claim that they can help with brain health, brain fog, energy levels, in anti-inflammatories. And there's a lot of crap that's out there.
Right.
So if we're talking about a beginner's guide to supplementations that supports optimal men's health,
Yeah.
where would you start and what are some of the cautionary tales?
Yeah, good question. I mean, first of all, so supplements can be really helpful, right? A lot of our medications come from herbal foundations, and there are lots of nutritional supplements that are helpful, but they're not really regulated in this country. There's a law called DSHEA you might have heard about, the Dietary Supplements and Health Enforcement Act from about 10, 15 years ago, that basically was intending to increase availability, not to really police supplements, which is great because then we can get a lot of supplements, but it means no one's really checking if there's crap out there. And when there have been studies done, the majority probably, especially for men, when it's because men are looking for supplements for erections and for muscles, right? And so the majority of those are actually either adulterated with pharmaceuticals or don't have in it what it says on the label or has the wrong plant part because it's cheaper than the part of the plant that actually does it, or even might have heavy metals in there. Bottom line is you got to get it from legitimate sources, from brands that get checked by a third party and that are vouched to say they have in it what it says on the label. So you can look for signs like USP, which is US Pharmacopoeia, or GMP, good manufacturing processes, or you can just get good brands that are reputable. And I don't get money from any of these companies, but Nature's Made is pretty much able to be found anywhere, and that's a good brand. Nature's Way is a good brand. They have different color caps, actually, and the purple caps are the best quality one. I do speaking for Metagenics, full disclosure, but they have excellent quality products.
Great.
Thorne is one of the best quality products out there. I mean, there's a website, it's called Consumer Lab, that you can get some of these things checked out on and check the exact supplement. Anyway, so that's the bottom line. The first thing is get a good quality. So if in doubt, ask somebody who knows about these things. What are the good brands for this? Secondly, for men's health, there's some specific ones. In my book, Optimal Men's Health, I list kind of the top 10 supplements for men in general and the top ones for sexual health. But I'd say a couple big go-tos. Magnesium is a big one for recovery from workouts. It's huge for sleep. You want to take it at night, about 400 milligrams at night. You want to get like magnesium glycinate is a good form that doesn't affect the GI tract because some magnesiums can make you get diarrhea or have loose stools.
And I had to switch to magnesium.
Gluconate or glycinate are good forms. But that's magnesium is relaxing. It's calming. It helps muscle. It helps with pain. It helps a lot of things for guys. And then zinc is important for health, for your immune system and sperm production. So about 20 milligrams of zinc a day is always a really good thing to add. And I love ashwagandha. It's a Ayurvedic herb. It's great for guys. It's been shown to actually help with fertility. So it helps sperm health. It actually helps testosterone work better. And the big thing is it helps block the impact of stress on the brain. So it's what's called an adaptogenic herb. And it helps cortisol, which is a stress hormone, is literally toxic to the brain. It literally kills brain cells. And cortisol is like anti-T because when you're stressed, your body's like, holy shit, crisis. We can't think about getting laid. We got to think about dealing with crisis. Let's stop T production. Let's not try to get laid. Let's just survive. So ashwagandha helps block some of that impact of cortisol. So that you need about 500 milligrams a day. I love ashwagandha for that. And then for libido, it's every culture kind of has a libido herb because it's such an important thing in cultures, right? So in Asia, it's like ginseng, Panax ginseng. In Indian or Ayurvedic medicine, it's tribulus. And then one that I like the most really is called maca. And that's from like Native American and Latin American. Again, all these cultures have their kind of male herb. Maca is great, very safe. You need to take like 3 to 4 grams a day. You can get it as a capsule. That they have good quality.
Maca goes great in protein shakes too.
Yes, you can get it as a powder, add it in smoothie shakes. Exactly. Sometimes if you get a smoothie somewhere else and they add maca, they're not adding enough. So tell them to triple what they're going to add. But that,
and then growl at them aggressively.
Exactly. Get all aggro.
Give me some maca.
No, but it actually does really help. That's been proven. Actually, maca was proven in a study. A lot of the side effects from antidepressants is it blunts libido, blunts ability to have an orgasm. And maca was proven to help counter some of that side effect in very well done scientific studies.
So I'm gonna transcribe this episode. I think one of the things we got to get into habits of is like actually transcribing the episode. So everything that you just shared, someone could be able to go to the website.
With some links. The
doingerwork.com podcast, and then you'll see the transcription here. So we'll start that going forward so you can get all of those supplements.
Or get my book.
I like how
of course.
I like how it took this episode of like just this deep level of detailed knowledge and be like, you know what? Now we need to transcribe this stuff.
And one of the things that I've learned, Dr. Spar, is like with the supplement game, it can get really overwhelming and confusing. If I were to open up one of my cabinets, you'll see how many fucking supplements I've got going on in there. And it's one of those things where when someone asks me, they're like, how do you like the ashwagandha you're taking? I'm like, I don't know, because like, you can't exactly tell.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I've got a concoction of all of these things, and I know that my energy levels are stable. My brain clarity is clear. I have no booms and bursts. There's not any crashes over the course. And I've gotten myself to that place. Sometimes it can be overwhelming. It could also be expensive.
Yes.
But the important part is to like start.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah. And actually it's better to do one thing at a time and just see, some of these are just good for you to do. You won't necessarily feel a difference, but some of these you should notice a difference. It takes about a month. This isn't a pharmaceutical, so it's not like take one pill and you feel something. But after a full bottle's worth. If you don't notice anything, then
You can
ditch
drop.
it. Yep.
The first place to start, maybe, if someone's like not on a supplement at all. And I know that the medicine's personal and supplements are personal.
Yeah, it depends on what your goals are. Again, it comes back to what are your goals? If your goal is sexual, like libido, I would start with maca. If your goal is I'm tired and stressed, try ashwagandha.
Nice.
If your goal is I can't sleep, do the magnesium.
Perfect. Awesome.
This is great. I want to start. First of all, I need to get the test.
Yes.
The hormone test.
You do.
And so should I go through Vault? Because I might be a good guinea pig here.
Absolutely. You would be perfect.
Baseline nothing.
How much is a panel through Vault Health?
Free.
The hormone panel's free?
Yeah. The initial assessment is free.
Someone comes to Brian's house and gets
Someone comes to your house.
How did the
does your
VC sign
blood
off
draw.
on this? This sounds like a great deal as a consumer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We come to your house, but the visit and the follow-up to go over the results is free.
Great. Okay. So that's the start.
Yep.
Right. That's the start. And then that follow-up is with a men's health specialist. In New York, you can actually come to one of our offices. We have 2 offices, but we
you do
also
have
have
physical
in-home
locations.
office.
I didn't realize
only
that.
in New York, we have like a flagship office.
Okay.
Or we can come to your home or office here in New York. And then elsewhere in the country, we come to your home or office and do it. And the most important part, is that follow-up with the men's health expert that says, okay, given your goals, given your issues, your past medical history, and your numbers, this is what you might want to consider.
And the things they're looking at, they'll get the test, but then are we looking at diet, supplementation, and potentially hormones?
Yep, exactly.
Those are the 3 areas.
Yep. In the labs, we start with either you can do kind of the hormone focus, which looks not just at testosterone, like we talked about. You got to look at free testosterone, estradiol, look at PSA, because if you have any issue with prostate health, we don't want to mess with testosterone necessarily. We look at your lipid panel, we look at your blood sugar, kidneys, all that stuff. And then if you want the more comprehensive, prevention-oriented, then we add in the things like Lp(a) and CRP and other measures to look at what's your real cardiovascular disease risk.
I know something that you talk about in the book, but we didn't talk about in this podcast much, are the other modalities of life that can have an impact on our quality of life and energy, like meditation.
Yep.
And going through Vault, does the coach help with any of that stuff?
Yeah.
Or is it more, okay.
That's where the performance, exactly. They work, mostly it's diet, exercise, stress, and sleep. Those are kind of the 4 levers or levers, if you prefer. And so we try and get the coaches to say, what's your one goal? And then let's look at which of those levers is most likely to impact that goal.
I'm a lever guy.
Lever.
Okay, lever.
I think lever.
Where'd you grow up?
South Carolina, Charleston.
South Carolina. Is that a lever town?
We didn't use the word that much, actually. So that was like 2 syllables.
I grew up in Chicago, and it was kitty corner and lever for sure.
Yeah. Now, the big one, it's funny because we had a thing on our podcast about fertility, and the urologist, Dr. Alex, was always like, infertile. And I'm like, it's infertile. And literally, we got into this thing. It's infertile. He said, infertile. And I was like,
nope.
No.
Is he Southern?
No, that's what was so weird.
Strange.
I don't know where we got that from. But anyway, so look at one of those levers and really say, let's just try and work on one thing at a time and focus on how that's impacting your outcome of interest.
Great.
All right, I noticed you're wearing an Oura ring.
Of
I got
course,
one to
measure. Yes,
do you love it?
And I got my Garmin
Oh, you got
triathlete. I'm a triathlete.
God, I feel naked over here.
Yeah, that's
my God.
Garmin watch and an Oura ring. It's like wearing 2 wristwatches.
Yeah, I have a Whoop band too, which is
What is that?
Oh yeah, that's also like a
Whoop band. Oh my God!
Yeah.
All right, that's like a whole. We got to do a whole another podcast
on
wearables. Whoop band. MLB wears it. All the Major League Baseball players wear it. It's really accurate in measuring what's called strain. So we're into metrics at Vault. Let's show that we're making a difference. Let's hold you accountable to doing what you're going to do, right? So I'm testing out all these wearables to recommend to guys, but Whoop bands measure your heart rate variability, which is a measure of stress, and measures your sleep quality. Not as good as Oura, but still really good. And then your resting heart rate. And it tells you, based on your activity and all those metrics, how much are you in strain that next day? And then your coach can be like, you know what? You're good to go. Let's go all out. Another day, you might have had too much to drink. It'll show up in your heart rate variability. It'll show up in your resting heart rate. They'll be like, you know what? We had this big workout plan, but you're going to injure yourself because you're just not cut out for that today. So let's cut back on that. It's cool.
Which one do you rely upon more for heart rate variability? Because the Oura ring also does it?
Yeah. I actually, for heart rate variability, I think the Whoop band's probably the best, but the Oura ring's really good at that. The Oura ring is especially good at sleep. That's its main thing. Yeah, it's the best one for sleep because it measures deep sleep, REM sleep, when you get up and down. It's great.
We are so close to being robots. This is so exciting.
I know.
Everything is measured. It's great.
I know. I kind of love it. It's exciting because you want to live to 120. That's how we're going to do it. Because then we're going to know, hey, I can eat pizza and I'm fine. But then when I have sugar, my sleep sucks. Whereas for Dominic, it might be the opposite. For Brian, it's
This is the other reason I don't do this, because I have a feeling when I eat a lot of cookies
Yeah, Brian's the Cookie Monster.
that my heart rate variability will be shit.
Yeah. And so you got to know these things.
I got to know these things. I got to stop living blind. Yeah.
Yes. Set up an Excel spreadsheet. We're going to get metric driven.
Okay.
All right. Dr. Spar, this has been awesome. I feel like we could go for another hour, actually, because we just got onto the topic of wearables, and I get to geek out on this stuff.
Yes,
but
next time, or we'll have you on Get It Up, the podcast.
That'd be fun.
Get It Up would be fun. We got the book.
So the book is Optimal Men's Health. People can buy that anywhere, Amazon, their bookstore.
Exactly. Yes.
Stuff.
Yep.
Get It Up, and then vaulthealth.com for like getting yourself started on this journey, especially if you're like Brian and haven't started yet. This is the first steps.
Get it checked out. And if you want to follow me on social media at Dr. Spar, DRSPAR, on all your local social media channels.
Oh, yeah. Dr. Spar, thank you. This has been awesome.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks guys.
Hey, Brian and I wanted to thank you for the ratings and reviews that you leave us. We read every single one of them, and they're so helpful in helping us to understand what resonates with you and helps us determine which topics that we use in the future. So if you found this episode to be of particular value to you, will you please leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts so that we know that this is the kind of topic you want to hear more about? And it also helps other prospective listeners to figure out where they can dive in first. Thank you.